with just the locals that call it home, but also visitors, second homeowners. And so that supply is becoming increasingly constrained. And for a number of reasons, we have not developed enough housing for locals over the last several decades, putting us in this situation where the character of Steamboat as a local town is really at jeopardy. So that's the sad part, I guess. But the nice part is that we're a community that thrives on solving our own problems. So 6 years ago, we had a community housing steering committee group that looked at our housing issue and made a solid commitment to action. And since then, the Housing Authority's been developing supply of local affordable housing year after year. We've developed the reserves on Elk River Road. We've developed Alpenglow Village, Sunlight, which is currently being leased up. There's some flyers in the back if you're interested. We have our English project currently under construction, and we're doing design on our project at Mid-Valley. We're delivering units year over year. We've almost exhausted the entirety of large parcels inside the city limits to develop new housing. And so the confluence of those events, our community's commitment to action, the Housing Authority's track record of successful developments, and the fact that we're short on land, were major contributors to the donation of Brown Ranch to the Housing Authority.
Oops, I think it's my turn.
Sorry.
Fine. I was like off on another, yeah. So right now, we know that we have a demand and a need for 1,400 homes. Okay, right in this moment, we could fill 1,400 homes. Approximately 2,000 people every day commute in from Craig. Some of those folks prefer to live in Craig, but many hope to return here so they can live closer to their jobs. Also, we have about 30% of our households in town that are called doubled up households in Routt County. And those folks have sometimes an entire family per bedroom. We started to call them like tripled up households and quadrupled up households. And those environments are super toxic, as you can well imagine. It's not unusual for those of us that work in the homes of low-income folks to walk in and see 15 plus people in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home. So when people need safe, stable, affordable housing, these are the type of people we're talking about. I come from a background in direct services and working with these folks, and it's not something any of us usually know unless you've lived it or you work in that field, and so that's why we're talking about it now. These are not safe homes. Super toxic and dramatic crisis situations arise from this type of housing. And lack of workforce, right? So we know from our data analysts that our workforce is declining rapidly, and it has been since 2010, and it's the second fastest rapid decline in the state of Colorado, next only to Telluride. We also know that our 25 through 45-year-olds, who are traditionally our strongest workforce, that age group is the one that's declining the quickest. It's because they're leaving, because there aren't housing options, and they're forced out of living here. Also, this is kind of scary, 30% of our workforce is 65 or older. I know. So we have a housing crisis. So we knew that for this to be successful, we as a community had to decide what we wanted. And we began with the steering committee. We had 90 applications, and every one of those folks would have been amazing on this group, but we had to pick 20. And so they are here now, or a lot of them are here, so if you guys could stand up. These 20 residents are a true snapshot of our community, and they represent a variety of skill sets, demographics, and most importantly, lived experiences. For the past year, they've been working super hard, sometimes meeting on a weekly basis for at least an hour and a half. They created the vision and guiding principles, which are guiding all the decision-making for the Brown Ranch. They've had to make some super hard decisions, like what's the definition of workforce, which we'll talk about in a little while. They have led community meetings, given presentations, created and led the focus teams. They've been interviewed by the media, and most importantly, they've made the Housing Authority staff accountable and have challenged us to do better. We told them they were going to have to help with us or work with us for a year. That was their commitment. We're past a year, and they still have more time. So if you guys didn't know, there's still about 3 more months in your commitment for this planning process. Over the course of the last year, we've connected with more than 3,300 community members in more than 230 meetings. We did this through presentations, these smaller individual meetings with businesses, nonprofits, human service agencies, and just about every group you can imagine that wanted to know about housing. We also wanted to do some pretty intensive targeted outreach, something that has never been done before in this community. We wanted to hear from the marginalized and the unheard voices. And so we partnered with Latinx, and they're here in the back somewhere, some of them, and Integrated Community, and they went out to their communities and chatted with folks about what they needed. We also had a group at CMC in a social ethics class reach out to the 20-some-year-olds. That is a really hard group to connect with, by the way. They are having fun still, just so you know. And what we learned from them was they want to rent. They don't want to buy. But what we learned from everyone else is people want a place that they can buy. And so that actually changed some of the decision making from working with our consultants and what data was showing. We increased the number of units that'll be for sale and decreased the number that are for rent. This is by the community and for the community. So we're listening to people and doing the best we can to honor everybody's choices and hopes for this. Another thing we learned, barriers to loan products. Loan products are not the same for everyone. I don't know if people in here have ever learned that. If you've been one of those folks that doesn't get that equality in their loan product, there are different interest rates depending on your income, and if you're an immigrant, it's even harder. So we learned about that, and we're working on removing those barriers with local banks and hopefully creating some loan product for those that don't kind of fit that standard mold. Safety. Safety was a huge piece from that too, because a lot of folks that live in lower income neighborhoods, their children walk right out into a parking lot or an actual street. And so it's not safe, and people have to actually take their kids out to a play area. One of the communities that's out by the Brown Ranch that doesn't have the bus is, well, we have 2 communities out there. You guys know what they are. And those folks are walking their kids on the highway to the bus stop. Super dangerous, right? So safety is a primary concern.
All right. So a big challenge of ours was taking this unprecedented amount of public input, really thoughtful, authentic, real stories from people, and turning that into a neighborhood. So the way in which we did that was we took the information that we heard, and some really core principles came out of that. And we worked with a group of national, state, and local consultants to help us implement best practices in the areas of affordability and sustainability, resiliency, health equity, urban design, traffic demand management, energy efficiency, economics. Our goal was to take the information that we heard from the community and turn it into actual work, into something that we can actually provide to the community that makes a difference in their lives. So pairing that community input with our experts produced the design that you'll see today. So hitting it on the key aspects that we did hear from the community, this comes as almost no surprise. People prioritize access to recreation, walking and biking. That is so core to Steamboat. But it really informed the way in which we develop, wanting to make sure that we really take care of the environment out there and make sure that we honor some of the really treasured assets out there, like Slate Creek and some of these bluffs that are just amazing spots. People want home ownership. They want mobility. They want the ability to access key services right in their neighborhood. So from that, we ended up developing a very compact and walkable community surrounded by open space. So the entryway into Brown Ranch that you can see behind us is the first neighborhood we intend to develop. This neighborhood will have about 450 homes. It'll have key services like a grocery store, childcare, medical services, restaurant, all with a mix of housing types at a variety of incomes. This neighborhood is immediately across from the Sleepy Bear Mobile Home Park that we were just talking about, right off Highway 40, adjacent to the currently under construction Overlook subdivision. This place is going to have community connections built into the fabric. This is a place where you are going to connect with your community on the regular. One of the aspects that I'm really excited about is, first, you will be no more than 2 blocks away from parks and open space in any of the homes in this neighborhood. The second is, you see the building in the foreground. My imagination is that's going to be a brewery. I'm going to ride my bike there on the core trail. I'm going to be drinking a beer and watching my kids, who are currently causing havoc in the back, play in the park out front. It's those types of communities, the types of communities I think we all really want to live in.
All right, so how are we going to do this? In order to be successful, we knew that we had to work with some partners. And the Housing Authority is really good and an expert at building attainable and affordable housing, but we are not good at youth services, food, daycares, schools, and recreation areas. So we put a request out to the community for anybody that thought they had a great idea to partner with us in, and that fit into the principles and the vision of the Brown Ranch. And we got, 25 applications or so, and now we have at least 20 partners. And we are looking at creating these relationships so we can see what we want to build out there. They include things like after-school programs, indoor, outdoor recreation spaces, educational programs, social gathering places, nonprofit offices, and specialty services, along with others. And there was one thing that most every one of these applications had in common, and that was a request for staff housing. We have a housing crisis. So many of these folks are here today, and we're looking forward to working with them. We've got several years before we have to really know. But one of the groups that we're working with is a food group. We know from all of our data that food is super expensive here, some of the most expensive in the entire state. So when we're looking at a grocery store at the Brown Ranch, is that something like a city market? Well, probably not. What we need to address is the cost of food, not the access to food.
All right.
So, if you hope to live at the Brown Ranch, will you please raise your hand? That's good. That's more than the last group. The last group was all old. I'll just throw that out there. So I think they already had housing. I include myself in that. As you notice, I'm using readers, and I bought a special pair for today. I got an extra 0.5 on them so I can see the paperwork. So who's going to live here? So this was the hardest question that the steering committee had to tackle. Very controversial, very difficult, because everybody has a different living situation. It took several meetings to get to the final definition, and this is basically what it came down to. There are a lot of jobs that we are missing in this community, and they have to have somebody that's living here to work at these jobs. They can't be done remotely, and they can't be outsourced. So the definition of workforce is you have to work at a business that's physically located in Routt County, and you have to have possibly retired from a business that's physically located in Routt County. So if you've spent the last 5 years of your working career working here, you will qualify for the Brown Ranch. That does not mean we don't absolutely love our remote workers. We have a lot of amazing remote workers that are part of this community. They contribute a lot, and they're welcomed, and we're so sorry, but we have to address our workforce issue first. Also, our first guiding principle talks about how the Housing Authority is to build affordable, attainable housing for the workforce of Routt County to meet the urgent and long-term need.
All right. So stepping back just a minute, the vision for Brown Ranch was something that the steering committee really took close to heart and created. And it begins with welcoming neighborhoods. Our rock star 14-year-old Vanessa, thank you, was the one who really tied everything together to help us bring this vision together. In addition to welcoming neighborhoods, we'll have a diverse group of housing to meet the affordable and attainable housing needs for the entire income spectrum of our local workforce. We'll have vibrant and resilient, and diverse neighborhoods. And again, this is designed by the community for the community, taking all of the input that we heard and putting it into practice in an actual neighborhood. This plan will deliver 2,300 homes. And 2,300 homes is the demand for housing that we see by the end of 2040. So right now we have 1,400 current residents that need housing. That number will grow over time as we build this, and will be 2,300 units by the end of that. And we intend to build only for that workforce. So no second homeowners, no vacation renters, only locals. So the 4 neighborhoods that comprise Brown Ranch are going to be in and of themselves essentially distinct. The first is down there in the bottom right, right across from Sleepy Bear and next to Overlook. Of the 534 acres at Brown Ranch, 40% of it will be parks and open space. And the individual neighborhoods themselves, as I mentioned, will be self-containing. There'll be land developed in compact, walkable neighborhoods. The road layout that you see there is kind of a riff on your traditional street grid. Instead of the same street grid that you would see where it's just a road every street, every other north-south street in this design is a greenway. So when you step out your front door, you're at a park. This gets to a couple of the things that we heard from the community. One, sustainability. Less asphalt, less heat island, less impervious surface, more natural space. Secondly, creating more connection for the community. So we talked about attainable and affordable as our first goal, and that is first for a reason. It is our priority number 1, and we do not move on from there if we can't meet affordable and attainable. We want to deliver this housing product, 100% of this housing product at affordable and attainable levels. And if we can't hit that, we're not starting. So for us, that's the goal right off the bat, is to build affordable and attainable. One of the ways that we can do that, and one of the areas that we as a local community have specific control over, is through compact development. We can choose to be smart with the way we grow. We can invest in building roads that serve the most number of people, water lines that serve the most number of people, open space areas that serve the most number of people. So this design is intended to derive affordability, yet also create flexibility so that we can respond to the housing market as it changes over the next 20 to 25 years. Our second principle is sustainable, and there's really a lot of synergy here between affordable and sustainable. Now, we really want to focus on healthy places, harmony with the environment, which is why we're preserving a lot of open space, but it also makes economic sense to preserve a lot of open space and build in a compact design. We're aligning the plan with the Routt County Climate Action Plan to deliver homes that use significantly less energy than the average Routt County home, that consume less water, than probably any other home in Routt County. And we're building services immediately adjacent to housing to reduce traffic demand, so that walking and biking is not just something we talk about, it's something that actually gets done. It's a lifestyle choice that becomes the most convenient way to get around. What you see behind me is one of these examples of the Greenway. I'm particularly excited about sending the kids out the front door right into a park. And that is just an idyllic situation. No more look out for the cars, it's probably look out for the moose. As I mentioned, our preservation of open space is really important. We have a creek that runs through the property called Slate Creek. We really intend to enhance that with this project. It's a great asset for the neighborhood. It creates this natural open space corridor that connects all the communities. We'll have local trail networks throughout that will connect to an extension of the West Side Core Trail, which will connect the entire community and Brown Ranch together and allow for biking and walking to areas outside of Brown Ranch, and for the folks who already live on the west side of town to safely get into town. We're limiting private yards to reduce water consumption, and also we have a solar-oriented grid to make sure that we can take advantage of energy generation if possible. By being healthy and connected, we're really talking about creating opportunities for our community to live together. We have a variety of housing types at all different incomes spread throughout the community so that everyone is living together. And that through greenways and trails and open spaces, we're connecting people and places throughout the neighborhood. And also, as I mentioned, we're connected to the greater community through the West Side Core Trail extension, through transit hubs in each neighborhood that connect to the expansion of the bus line. Design that leans on some of the best parts of downtown and Old Town, but we design them by the community and for the community to make sure that those benefits, those amazing benefits of living in Old Town, are available to everyone in our community. And lastly, our community-driven process is intended to be fact-based and honest. And I think it's important to be honest about the fact that the growth and development of Steamboat in Routt County over the last several decades has not benefited our community equally. There's been a significant portion of our community that's been left behind. While we were doing our community outreach, we heard from those folks. Those folks desperately need housing. They deserve housing. And that is why we're focusing very squarely on health equity as we engage in everything that we do here. Because when we're building a brand new community, this time we're making sure nobody's getting left behind.
All right, so health equity. Everything we did, every decision we made, we did it through a health equity lens. So what does that mean? Health equity is basically that everyone has a fair and just opportunity to be as healthy as they can possibly be. There are a lot of barriers to that, such as discrimination and poverty. But it's all about equal access. Access to quality medical, access to a good education, right? It's all about access. And when we work with folks with direct services, we realize very quickly that there is systemic racism and there's systems that are set up to work against a lot of people. And it's super difficult. So access became a priority. And I know from working at Integrated Community and working with folks every single day, thousands and thousands of people over my 10 years there, that when they got into a housing authority property, their entire world changed because all of a sudden they were in safe, stable, and affordable housing. And they went from coming into our office 2 or 3 times a week to coming in twice a year to bring us cookies and tell us hello because they missed us, right? All those other things fell into place, like the ability to pay for daycare, the ability to pay for some good food. So access to affordable and safe and stable housing is the very first piece. We put together a health focus team, a health equity focus team that was different than the others. It didn't have the public involved, but it had a lot of our local experts in that area and people that work with folks every single day. They are the ones that have their pulse on what is truly going on in this community and the struggles that a lot of people have. So they shared what they were seeing in their work and the lived experiences of their clients. And oddly enough, it totally matched what the data was telling us. So food is expensive. We know that, right? Lack of affordable dental care in this community is really different. Not enough access to mental health. Those are the top 3, but it goes down the line for a lot of the things I've already mentioned. So now we had to integrate what we knew into the design. And that's that map up here. So when we looked at the 3 school sites, the possibilities for a school, we made sure that it was equal access to all income levels, because we will have multiple income levels out there. And public transportation, it needs to be extended to the Brown Ranch. Like we said, that's going to help our most marginalized community, which is the Sleeping Bear Trailer Park. And then we'll have bus stops in every neighborhood at the Brown Ranch, so kids and everyone can access that public transportation in an equal manner, in a safe manner, where they're not crossing highways. Where's everything located? What are the core services? And how do all the neighborhoods access them safely? We know that the Brown Ranch will have a dramatic impact on the health of our community, but how are we going to move that needle? How do we know we're moving it and improving the housing crisis while improving the overall health of our residents? Well, we have some very smart data analysts helping us with that, because that's another thing we don't know how to do well, right? So doubled up households. Are we moving the needle? Are people moving into our properties coming out of those very unsafe situations? The number of residents who are cost burdened, are we reducing that number? The share of affordable homes to the median income. Right now, those don't exist. They are completely non-existent. More people reporting good health. The number of folks transitioning from unsafe to safe. And is our working age population increasing? We have a crisis, and what we know from decades of data is where you live determines your ability to be healthy and thrive.
All right. So the biggest question that I get all the time is, how are you going to make this affordable? And I think we're going to have to acknowledge the fact that the practical economics of delivering housing to local households right now doesn't work. The cost to deliver supply far exceed the ability for our local wage earners to pay rent or pay a mortgage. The commercial real estate industry is not going to solve this problem. 2 different for-profit groups have tried, and here we are, still vacant land. But our approach is different. The Housing Authority is in a unique position to deliver affordability. We can deliver resources to this project and efficiencies and subsidies at every level of the development process. And so we've got a heck of a good head start with free land. And that in and of itself won't close the gap, but we now control the most important aspect of creating new housing. The public outreach that we've done over the last year and the technical study that we've done has been supported by the Colorado Health Foundation, Craig Sheckman Family Foundation, Colorado Division of Local Affairs, and by the community's investment in YVHA through the 5A for Homes funding. All of that is subsidy that we're able to put in and not pass on to the end user. As we talked about, compact development is really key in gaining the efficiencies that we can actually control as a local community. And so we've worked through that lever and designed a very compact and walkable community that takes the best advantage of our infrastructure that we need to invest in. The infrastructure that we will be investing in ideally is going to be paid for through a combination of state, federal, and local grants. We have a very unique opportunity right now with federal funding flowing through the states for us to access a significant amount of grant funding to cover the infrastructure investment. so that we can deliver those units to our locals without that cost being passed on. And we also, locally, aren't going to have to pay that money that gets granted from the federal government. And so we have a huge opportunity in front of us. We are probably better positioned than any community in Colorado to access those funds. So that gets us to horizontal construction. From there, the Housing Authority's got a proven track record of creating new housing out of different programs like the low-income housing tax credit that subsidizes the vertical development. We also have housing support services that reduce barriers to access to housing and down payment assistance to help home buyers. And lastly, it's a big question about affordability. What does that even mean? You know, you look at a rent that's $2,600. Is that affordable? Depends on who you ask. Quite honestly, affordability means something different to everyone. And it depends on your income, your current situation, your goals, what's happening with your household. And so the federal standard is 30% of your income spent on housing is affordable, 30% or less. And that's the standard that basically all housing authorities work towards. But quite honestly, that's not a standard that works for every single person. Some are willing to pay more, some can't pay more, and some have to pay less. And so our goal is to create a variety of housing and a variety of housing prices so that we can fit every workforce member's definition of affordable. So after people ask, is it going to be affordable, the next question is, but really? So we're in a unique position as a nonprofit and government entity to be delivering housing. We're here making sure that the subsidies and investments go into the property and into each unit to make them affordable at the onset. And we're also here as a long-term steward. So these units will be affordable from day one through year 100. And the way in which we do that is through a community affordability agreement. Still getting my head around that name. And so what that does is it creates predictable price increases for both rental and for purchase housing, so that if you're the second or third or fourth occupant of that unit, it's still affordable to you. Moving on to the next question is, okay, great, we love it. When can I get my unit? Robin. Thank you. Our goal is to deliver the first units by 2026. This is an aspirational goal by us, and it responds to the significant need for housing that we have right now. Now, in the time between now and 2026, don't fear, Housing Authority has a current property under construction to be delivered next year, and another project that will break ground next year that will deliver product in 2024 and 2025. So this will be the natural progression of the Housing Authority's development pipeline. And so once we start at Brown Ranch, that's where you know we're going to be building for the next 25 years. Now, to get to that point, for the first home to be delivered in 2026, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Today is the beginning. I was joking with somebody outside that it feels like we might have just finished the first mile of a marathon. And so the first step for us is submitting our petition for annexation with the city later this month. We're going to work collaboratively with the city on a timeline that addresses the serious issues that need to be addressed in housing, in developing housing at Brown Ranch: water, traffic, how to pay for ongoing services, equity. All of those are really important items that we need to discuss. And so we're going to work with the city on a timeline that tackles these items and tackles them in a systematic and timely manner so that we can address the housing issue thoughtfully and address growth thoughtfully with the city, but still deliver housing when it's needed.
All right, so how can you help support the Brown Ranch? First of all, we've got a board here in the back that has stories, some lived experience of housing struggles going on right now. I don't know about you guys, but all of us that are working in this field can't go a day without somebody coming up to us and saying, I'm just holding on. I'm holding on and hoping that I can stay. Will you get the Brown Ranch ready in time? So if you'd like to share your stories, please go to the back and you can fill out a card. We'd love to hear from everyone what those are. They're super impactful for the decision makers in our community, and we'll be sharing them with them. And then also we have some comment cards back there. There's a couple of questions. This plan is not fully complete. We want to hear from you to make sure that we've included all the voices in the final plan, which should be out and on the website in several weeks. For those of you, John, who are taking photos of the slides, you can actually go to the website right now and get a summary of what the booklet's going to be, and it has a lot of great information there if you want the information right away. Also, the board. We have 14 amazing volunteers that are on the board. They are the ones that make sure the staff and the Housing Authority is completely transparent and accountable. And we are losing several of those members at the end of the year. One, the term has ended, but two left because they didn't have any housing. One lost their housing and the other couldn't afford to stay any longer, which was super unfortunate. But we would love for anybody that's interested and wants to participate and have a voice in this process to apply. It's through the city and county, and it should be up on the city website here real soon. Another way is to join the community partnerships. If you've got a great idea and we're just thinking, oh my gosh, I should have got that idea in, you can still submit an idea to us. Just give us a buzz. We want to talk to everyone. We're a few years out on everything, so we want to hear from you. And of course, one of the youth groups is the Steamboat Springs Youth Soccer Association. Did I get that right? So anyway, you can join the group. You can join the team that's doing food or the team that's doing these services. But please, let us know if you want to participate in one of those.
All right. Hey, Robin, before we go into questions, can you go to the last slide? One more. Two more. Other way. All right, where's Violet? Come here, hon. One more. All right, speaking of Steamboat Youth Soccer, this is Violet. And this, Violet, what's up there? You want to tell everyone?
It's my ladybug house blueprint.
Thanks, honey. All right, it's these little ones who are going to end up inheriting this community. This is who we're building for. All right, back to the questions. Thanks for indulging that. Yeah, we're gonna bring mics around. There's one right there and one over there. We'll bring mics around for folks to ask questions. Just raise your hand and folks will bring the mic to you.
Hold it like this.
Okay.
Why is it going to take 4 years from now to get your first people in when our housing crisis is very bad right now?
Because it's raw land. There's literally nothing there except an old house and a barn. So getting that infrastructure in is going to take a while. Also, we have to go through the annexation process for the next year and work out, a lot of the details with the city. And so it's going to take a bit of time. But the good news is we've got a property leasing up right now, another one that's being built over on Anglers Drive and leasing up next year. And then we'll go to the Mid-Valley project, and some of those will be for sale. There'll be 200 units there, and that'll lease up in a couple of years. So we're not building homes, right? Yeah.
Okay, great. So infrastructure obviously is the big number. You comment on federal, state-related grants and funding. What percentage of infrastructure is actually within the structure of the available monies that we think will be will come through federal to accomplish the infrastructure?
Yeah, thanks for that question about sort of how much federal funding can we get for this. Our estimate is that we can probably pay for 50% of the infrastructure with grants. So that's doubling up our local money to make sure that we can deliver affordability. And that's an aggressive number, but as I mentioned, we are in the best position of any community in Colorado to get that money.
We'll be coming around with the mic. We do ask that you introduce yourself. Just say your name before you.
Good job, Megan.
Oh, geez. My name's Mark. I've lived in Steamboat for 18 years, since '04. I've done the math. It's 18 years. So what do you call someone in Steamboat with a full-time job? You call them homeless. What do you call someone in Steamboat with 2 full-time jobs? You call them your roommate. That joke is actually no longer applicable. That was my best joke that I had. It's gone. But my question generally is a little bit of a comment too is, you know, I could tell you all about, I'm hanging on. I have till about June to find something in a friend's apartment overhead of a garage right now. 18 years, I'm a bus driver for the school district soon. What I'm asking is, and more comment and question, if we could think outside the box. I haven't had time to be on the input committee, maybe I could join that, to really pursue more levels of sustainability when we come to the design of these homes, and not just say that they're going to look, you know, pretty spiffy or like anywhere in downtown Denver. Could we pursue more options to be the leader in the sustainability designs? We have things in Routt County called earth ships, which I know are not everyone's cup of tea to live in a house built out of tin cans and car tires. However, there are some things that I think we should do to set ourselves as a standard for maybe articles are written about us in the country about we're doing things that think outside the box. So that's really my comment and hope, is that we think outside the box and we don't just go with a basic cookie cutter stamp, and we use the best materials for sustainability.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The emphasis on sustainability is really key. It's our second priority here at Brown Ranch, and we're currently undergoing an energy master plan where we're looking at literally every way to deliver energy, and we're looking at, you know, some things like ground source heat pumps and photovoltaic and different deliveries of energy outside of the norm. So that's part of the reason why we brought in all the technical experts, was to show us what's possible. We didn't necessarily want to design yesterday's community tomorrow. We wanted to design the newest and best community that we can, because we have such an opportunity with the scale that we're developing to really make a difference. And it gets to affordability. You know, the efficiencies that we can gain really will deliver affordability in the long term.
Hey, up here in the middle. What's up? I'm Eric. This is my buddy Paul. Question for you. I'm going to give a little background, then ask a question. So with, like, you know, the Stockbridge Transit Center, you've got Copper Ridge Trail, Conestoga Circle, Elk River Road, and then Copper Ridge Court behind there. So currently with traffic coming, the swell coming in and out every day, I actually can't get into town from my neighborhood between, I don't know, 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, and between 4:45, and we had trouble driving here because of the, you know, the swell I'm talking about on the west side of town, right? So now I'm like, okay, let's, you know, put a few more thousand people over there, which is great. I'm all for it. But I'm like, okay, well, through this development, my question is, through this development, will we see full-on traffic lights all the way out there, so that those you know, to have people turn on and get off of Highway 40 in an orderly fashion with, you know, another, I don't know, I thought I saw 450 units, so I multiply that by 2. I'm like, cool, there's another 1,000 people over there. I currently can't get on Highway 40 over by the brewery and over by Moe's Barbecue. Will there just be street lights all the way out there and back to help us get in and out of there?
Yeah, so traffic is definitely a concern, which is part of the reason that we're putting a lot of services in out there, so people don't have to drive into town or the other side of town, the south end. So by having services such as medical, office space, food, daycare, grocery, and schools, we're hoping, and then making it super walkable and bikeable, kind of like folks like in the downtown area, right? One of the reasons a lot of people like to live there. It'll keep people, it'll be self-sufficient and kind of operate on its own a bit to help with that. And then too, I just want to say again, like the 1,400 homes we need now are for people that are already here and currently working in Routt County. So that first phase isn't going to change the traffic too much. A lot of those folks live in Craig, so it'll shift it a bit, but yeah.
And there's undoubtedly going to be improvements to Highway 40 on the west side of town. That's been planning phases for years, and the question is largely just been funding. It's sort of at a position where it needs to be improved, and I know that the city's working hard on that. We intend to work on that with them as we address that in the annexation.
Ken Brenner. First of all, congratulations on the donation of the land that's enabled the Housing Authority to take a serious stab at the West of Steamboat plan. As you know, we've been trying to do something with this for 25 years, and I know I spent my 8 years on council as a real priority. And thank you for all the dedicated work that you and your staff have done. One of the big challenges, though, that from my perspective, having sat on the APCC for 5 years, was trying to address all of the infrastructure costs out here. Because you're right, there is no infrastructure, period. There's no roads, water, sewer, none of the utilities, nothing. We're starting from scratch. And you only control about half of the land that's within that designated growth area. What are your thoughts on how to plan to build all of that infrastructure, the core infrastructure, in the initial build of your space, and then being able to equitably divide those costs for all of that infrastructure? We discussed a general improvement district and had a lot of confidence in that approach, but that's the one part of my question, is that the infrastructure costs and how it affects the entire growth area. Second part is to talk a little bit more about the cost of the services from the city's perspective, because we both know that residential areas never pay their proportionate cost of services that the city must deliver. And that's going to be a stumbling block during the vote for annexation. Just was curious to hear what your thoughts are on those two items.
All right. Thanks for those questions, Ken. So following up, cost of services, cost of infrastructure. So your question about equitably delivering, hi Lily, equitably delivering those services. We've got about $200 million of on-site infrastructure that's just needed for the site that we intend to develop, but there's another $200 million in infrastructure that's needed for the general area. So that's the improvements to Highway 40 that we've talked about, expansion of the city's water treatment facilities off the Elk River, and upgrades to the grid, upgrades to the sewer treatment plants, all of those things. Those are things that we're going to have to work really collaboratively with the community on. There's a referendum on the ballot this fall that's a potential funding source for some of that community-wide infrastructure. And so that's going to be a very difficult question. Our goal is, as far as the equity component is concerned, getting grants and spreading that benefit across to most people is really going to be the way to do it equitably. As far as the cost of city services, you're absolutely right that it's going to be a big conversation. I'm looking forward to talking about that with the city. We're doing a fiscal impact model in conjunction with the city right now that will shed some light on what it is going to cost to deliver services out there for plowing roads and maintaining parks and all of that. I mean, that's a really serious conversation. We need to make sure that it's sustainable long term.
Hi, I'm over here. My name's Kira. First, I want to echo Ken. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. None of this is easy, and we really appreciate everything. I do work in the community and I plan to continue to do that. However, if I was in a two-person household and I had a partner that worked remotely, are there, would that still qualify us, or would every person in the household contributing to the budget, would that work? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you've got a 2-adult household and you're wondering if you both have to work. No, one adult has to work in the, yeah.
Hold it like this.
Hey, how will you decide when people go in there? Will it be like a lottery system like you're currently doing? And another question is, will there be any exclusivity to the services provided, such as daycare, to the residents within the Brown Ranch? Or will potentially other people that live on the west side of town be able to access some of that?
Right, so as far as the exclusivity, no. Any service that's at the Brown Ranch will be open to anybody that wants to come to the neighborhood, right? And then the lottery piece, that's what we're utilizing right now. It makes sense that we would use it out there, but we'll have to see.
I think we may have time for maybe one more question or two more questions. So.
Hi, my name's Amber. I've been living in the community for about 18 years now. And I'm a median income earner, just on a month-to-month right now, doing the best I can to stay as well. Thank you for your efforts. I'm really excited about this. I am, after reading the article in the pilot about the 12% median income raise that happened from 2021 to now, I'm a little bit concerned when we talk about the subsidies that are coming from the federal government, and I know a lot of those are a little bit more pointed towards lower income people. And so how do we, like with the Sunlight Crossing community, I know that, there was a projected starting, hey, this is how much it's going to cost. And now since the median income is going up with a lot of people moving here and having higher incomes, how are we going to balance that out? How do we keep it real and say, hey, where do we cap it? And how do we keep this affordable so it doesn't keep rising and raising and raising as more millionaires keep moving in? So,
yeah, so that's a really good question. I hope I can answer this well for you. But we're looking at multiple income levels out there with that AMI because we know that we need housing for all workforce. It doesn't even matter if you're a doctor now. Most of our nurses now are traveling folks. So hopefully by hitting a certain number of units for sale and for rent at all those different levels with some really good stratification of like 10 or 20%, we should be hitting everybody. And it's a moving target. So when we talk about area median income, it has to do with your income level. So we're going to hit a variety of income levels out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think we should acknowledge that even though area median income is sort of the standard to which everything is done in the affordable housing realm, there's definitely a disconnect between that 12% jump and what real wages have been experienced by locals. And so that's a challenge for us moving forward, is to make sure that we're not outpacing folks' ability to pay. That's been obviously a huge problem in this community. We're investing so much in that, we have to be sure that we're not outpacing people's ability to pay. So it's a huge issue. It's something we're quite honestly going to have to be tackling ongoing. That's part of our ongoing stewardship.
Hi, Tom Ross. So we've been hearing the word equity, and in my mind that means, people will own their homes in the development. Is that correct?
Yes, there will be a lot of homes for sale.
So when they leave that home, there'll be equity, but not the full value on the market, is to keep it affordable. Is that the case?
Yes, that's the case, because we need it to be affordable in perpetuity, right? So
Yeah.
the second, third, fourth homeowner or somebody in 20 years has the same opportunity. And so there's a lot of discussion, of course, around wealth building, because people have kind of gotten used to that with homes recently. And so what does that look like? And we've got a down payment assistance program now, and we'll utilize one for the Brown Ranch. And we're even looking for maybe some grants to help people with the down payment assistance, and that'll build some initial equity to help them get going. But we will have to have a cap.
Yeah, it seems like that's essential to keep those homes to be, attainable throughout their lives.
Yeah.
Not the people, but the building.
Yeah, thanks. That's a really great question. All right, folks. We really appreciate everyone coming out. All of the information that you saw today, including much, much more about the Brown Ranch plan, will be on our website, brownranchsteamboat.org. It's probably already up there, so go ahead and take a look. The comment cards that we have out there and some of the information you'll be able to provide us feedback on our website, we want to know what about this is inspiring to you, and that tells us what we're doing well. We want to know what concerns you have, so we need to know where we need to double down our efforts. And lastly, we want to hear from folks if they want to live out here. Is this a community that's desirable enough for you to want to live out there? And so we'd appreciate that feedback, and thank you all for your time.